Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Upward and Onward. And today we are joined by our guest, Bradley Adams. He is the co-founder of Aerogami, and today you'll get a chance to hear about the things he's done in the past and what he's up to now. Bradley, thanks for taking the time and joining us today.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Of course.
It's great to be on the show.
Of course. I think what would be helpful for the people who are listening and maybe watching is to get a sense of who you are and your background.
Sure, yeah. So Bradley Adams, entrepreneur, co-founder of Aerogami, but I really do think I've been like a lifelong entrepreneur, not necessarily in a founder role myself. I think one of the things that's cool about my story is most of the ventures I've been involved in has actually been more as an employee helping someone else kind of create a vision. But I always loved that idea that people could sit at a table, have a conversation about a problem they have, and ultimately come up with an idea that might solve that problem. And being able to kind of put the pieces together in that process of how do we take this idea now we have and build it so it actually can go and help people.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of our superpowers. I think it's one of the coolest things we can do as people.
Definitely. It definitely is. I think that everyone has a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit or even an entrepreneur. So It's awesome to see how you took that from being maybe an entrepreneur in your own right, working for someone else, and now how you're doing that for yourself.
Let me tell you, it's a lot cheaper to learn lessons when you're an employee.
Is that right?
Than what it is. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Think about it. When you're not burning other people's money, you're just, hey, I'm taking orders from somebody else, man.
Yeah, it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And what would be helpful is to also hear about your college experience. You had studied at the Bryant University, and you studied entrepreneurship and finance and applied analytics. What was the motivation behind studying that, and can you tell us about your experience?
Yeah, well, shout out to the Bulldogs.
Yes.
Bryant runs deep around here.
It does.
I think it's one of those cool schools where maybe it's not like a Brown or an Ivy where you don't have that recognition, but when you look at the people who actually are doing things and making moves, there's a lot of Bryant graduates out there, man.
There are.
I know you've had a few of them on your show.
I have. You guys have seen them?
Yeah. So I had a really great experience at Bryant. I think they do a great job. Just having this conversation with Riley when we were talking about our college experiences. I think Bryant did a really great job of really putting your feet to the fire when it came to doing some of the more basic business skills. Things like delivering a presentation, public speaking. These weren't things that you saved for your senior thesis that you had to go up there. It was freshman year GFOB, where it's like the first thing you're doing is you're pitching a group of target executives a concept that you'd like them to implement in their stores.
Interesting.
But then they do cool things too, where one of the classes I took my senior year was the first kind of experimental design thinking class that was a combination between management and psychology.
Okay.
And so we were studying the processes from Google and HBS that of like, how do you take this process of having ideas and how do you organize them in a way where you can actually get to a solution that's the most practical and most realistic for you to implement to go solve this problem that we're addressing.
Wow.
And they have programs like Brian Idea that they also do, which is, again, is all freshmen. You come in a week early. You go through essentially a startup weekend where they give you a problem, and they'll partner with like Gillette Stadium. They'll partner with like Providence, and they'll say, hey, like the project we had was how do you boost local tourism from visitors going to hotels? And so we built the concept of like a coupon slot machine that you could put in the hotel lobby.
Okay.
So while you're visiting town, you pull the slot, you get a coupon for a dinner that's local, and guess what? You're trying a new restaurant that you might not have found otherwise.
Love that.
So it was all stuff powered by Brian. And how I ended up with the concentrations I did, it was really kind of just more experimentation. Came in as an entrepreneurship major primarily, but then come to find out that there weren't really a lot of, I'll say like program focused like courses that were required for the major.
Yep.
So the question came up was like, well, what am I spending my money here for? Am I spending my money to do a bunch of electives, or am I really going to be here to focus on a specialty? So that's when I added finance, because I was interested in how money moves and how people kind of just calculate it. And, there's a language that comes with money.
Definitely.
So I wanted to learn a little bit more about that. And then lastly, the analytics kind of just popped up because I was taking stats. And again, it was a new program that Bryant was doing. I probably couldn't have gotten away with getting 3 concentrations now because the programs have a lot more of a, I'll say, locked in schedule of what you can do.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to kind of skate in there and just get a couple of the kind of required programs they had, learn a little bit about data science and what it takes to build databases, how to navigate them, what comes with data cleaning, and some of the issues that comes with big data. So it was kind of everything I was doing. I knew I was trying to build not for a specific role, but to kind of give myself multiple perspectives so I could fit into any role and do it with some level of thinking or clarity or some mental models that would allow me to navigate it a little bit better.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like you really enjoyed your time there.
Oh yeah, so much fun. Although, let me tell you, senior year kicked my ass.
Is that right? How so?
Curse on here, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, you could drop a little something.
I'll keep it PG-13.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because I remember it was one of those things where like everyone was partying, having fun. People were taking like 3-4 classes, like bare minimum.
Yeah.
And I was like, God damn it, I have 6 classes in the fall, 7 classes in the spring, and we just got to lock it in and finish it out.
We got to lock it in. And you did that.
We did that.
You did that. That's what's up.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Now, while you were at Bryant, you also studied abroad, right?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
my guidance counselor hated me.
Yeah? Oh, no.
She's like, wait, you're doing all this and you want to study abroad now? Like, I don't know, man.
I don't know, Bradley. I don't know if that's wise.
Yeah, you got to make some choices here.
You got to make smart choices. But you went.
I did.
Where'd you go?
I did. I went to Saville, Spain.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was that?
Oh, beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I think it was the first time I actually had been exposed to a new culture, which was really cool.
Okay.
Because I grew up in Connecticut, and grew up in like suburbia Connecticut, so it wasn't like there was a lot of diversity happening there. You know, you had maybe a little bit here or there. We were just south of Hartford, so you know, I had friends, you know, who were Spanish or whatever else, but again, you were very sheltered in that place. So it was cool being able to kind of go to Spain and like get there and be like, I don't know the language. Like, I have no idea what's going on.
That's right.
But it was cool because it was a really great exposure to a lifestyle that I thought matched more of what I liked, which was, hey, there's not just this focus on the grind culture and the hustle culture. And at that point I was a junior, so I had already worked with a couple startups and had been really kind of passionate about being really involved and being really eager about getting just more responsibilities and more involvements with them. So it was kind of like a little bit of a vacation where I could step back and say, hey, what do I actually really want to do? And like, how can I create the space for myself to really think through what that next phase looks like for me and who I want to be. And so it was cool. It was so much fun. I met some great people there. Still have friends that I studied abroad with to this day. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Really cool. Really
so
cool.
Yeah, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Anyone who's college student out there, dude, study abroad. You'll never, as an adult, unless you sell your company and make millions of dollars, there's no world where you're going to take 4 months and be able to live somewhere else. Unless you're doing the remote work thing, which again, I guess is more of an option. But
that's right.
Still, definitely go.
Super cool. So Seville in Spain.
Yeah, in Spain.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds like an awesome time. Yeah. I imagine the culture was great. The food was great. The weather was probably ideal too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a little warm there. But I mean, again, it was just cool. Like you'd walk by, like my commute to school was like 45 minutes, but like you'd walk the streets, you'd get coffee, you'd hop on a train, you'd listen to music.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I remember I used to have this playlist that I would listen to, or it was actually one continuous song.
Okay.
This was like the SoundCloud days.
Okay.
And so there's this one continuous mix that was like some like soft house.
Oh, that's great.
And this song or whatever this media clip was probably like an hour and 13.
Okay.
And so it was funny because by the time I started playing it when I was leaving my residencia, my phone would stay connected to my residencia Wi-Fi long enough just to upload and buffer like maybe like 55 minutes of the song.
Just enough.
So I actually never heard the whole thing.
Oh, really?
I just only heard that, 50 minutes that because then what would happen is I would show up to campus.
Yeah.
And right then it would just all suddenly clip out, and I'd be like, "All right, cool, I'm here."
Well, I'm here. Perfect.
That's it.
Thank you.
School's gonna start.
There we go. We're back to school. No more of this SoundCloud mix that is really good, but I can't listen to the whole thing for some reason.
No. I gotta wait till I get to the library Wi-Fi.
There you go. Makes sense. Totally makes sense. Nice. Now, while you were there, were there any memorable experiences or things that you just really took away that you were like, I loved being here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much, man. Like we would travel. Like I remember going to Amsterdam. We went to Brussels.
Nice.
One of the probably most significant moments for me was I was studying abroad in 2015 in that fall semester, and we were actually getting ready to go to Paris for an excursion. We had the way our program would work is they would set up some excursions for you where they would say, hey, we're going to go to Cadiz for the day.
Cool.
So we're going to set up a bus. We'll hop on as a group and we'll go to Cadiz.
Cool.
And the big program they had was this trip to Paris, and our group was so big they had to split it up into 2 cohorts. So one cohort was going one weekend, and then we were going to go the following weekend. And I think it was around Thanksgiving time too. I think it was like the next weekend was Thanksgiving or something.
Yep.
And we were in Brussels, and all suddenly we heard that the Paris attacks happened. and we had our whole group was there.
Wow.
Which was crazy.
Yeah.
Like we had friends that we were checking in with to make sure they were okay, because their hotel was actually like 2 blocks away.
Oh my gosh.
From where it was. So there was a very real possibility that people on our program could have been caught up in that, which was just an unbelievable thought to be processing as a college student.
Yep.
Just because you think of the world so safe, right? You obviously college can be a dangerous place for some people, unfortunately, but to have that kind of international event take place was just like a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And I remember it was a big exposure point for me because at that point, and like while I was at Bryant, I did a lot of on-campus positions. I was like an orientation leader. I was a Bryant ambassador.
Nice.
I ran like the opening weekend program, like senior year. I was like senior committee co-chair. Like I did a lot of cool stuff there. And even though I wasn't in risk management specifically, a lot of the people I worked with were in those roles. So you were working with campus safety, or you were working with counseling services to promote, mental health services or things like that. And I remember one of the most surprising things to me about that moment with the Paris attack was we had no outreach from our university about being okay.
Interesting.
Which was, again, going into the field after as a professional, I came to learn that there was a process that would go. So the program would be responsible for the initial kind of contact to students, and then they'd send reports back to the university. But working, and again, more in my professional career early on, seeing how that conversation actually happened, there's just so much that could have been done that would have made it easier both for the program, but also the university and parents. Because at that point, we were getting a Facebook message from like our program manager being like, hey, are you guys okay? Like, are you traveling this weekend or are you whatever? And a lot of the system at that point was relying on you doing a form or doing some type of itinerary submission. So if you're going to be away from where you're studying abroad, you had to submit this itinerary of like, hey, we're going to take a trip to Brussels, and this is where we'll be, and this is our Airbnb.
Okay.
But trusting a student to do that for every trip, again, paperwork is not a thing for students.
That's fair.
So again, we had to be on Facebook messaging our program and like, yeah, we're okay, we're in Brussels. And then it was crazy because it was like the Paris attacks happened, but like that same weekend, they were like, oh, there was connections to Brussels and the group. So like next thing you know, there was like things happening in Brussels, which is like, we're just staying in our Airbnb, man.
Yeah,
we're just
think so.
We're gonna call this it, and we're just gonna try to get home safe at this point.
That makes sense.
So it was a real eye-opening experience to me though, because I think again going back to like that idea of like there's a better way of doing things. Like here's a problem that we were impacted with directly, and how can we build something that's going to be a little bit better. So the first startup I got involved with post grad actually was focused on solving that problem specifically, where they had essentially technology that was a contact card that you could save on your phone as a student, so you'd have all the emergency contacts available should something actually happen. Because the only resource we were given was this wallet card that was for emergencies. But it was kind of sticky because we weren't really in danger directly. But we still needed to check in. But then there's a risk of like everyone calling in, and like someone who actually needs help might miss out on it. So again, just not a perfect system. And so it was a really good fit for me post grad because, again, I'd seen that problem. I had been that student. I knew what was going on. And this group was selling directly to universities. So it was kind of a great way for me to get some sales exposure early on in a startup and just say, hey, we have this product. We think it fits this problem. We'd love to have you on board and, talk to schools about your experience and ways that this product can help it. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's start hitting the phones.
Ooh, so is that what you were doing? You were cold calling?
Cold calling,
wow.
Dude.
Okay,
yeah,
so you were
50 calls a day, 100 emails out, man.
Oh, wow. That was the quota?
That was the grind. That was the grind. Yeah, and the crazy part, too, was the office we were working in. It was pretty cool. It was a cool setup because the founders had previous exits. I
see.
So they didn't actually have to raise outside capital. It was their money they put into this company, which was cool.
Yeah.
So I actually with the way we had this room, I swear to God, this room is bigger than the room we were selling in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How many people were in this room?
We had, I believe, 6 people.
Okay.
In a room. It was probably maybe like if you were to like do a wall straight ahead from here and like cave it in, it was probably this part.
Well, that's not that big of a room for 6 people.
Well, it made it really hard when you got someone on the phone because then we had this one guy from Boston.
Okay.
Rich, I'll never forget. He was my desk right next to me too. And dude, that guy, once he had the headset too, so once he was on it, man,
all you can hear is
him.
He's
like, hey,
what's going on?
Yeah, it was just crazy. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
But it was awesome though, because it was a really great experience where it was giving me immediate feedback in my role as a salesperson too, because now it was like I remember my first really bad cold call.
Oh, really?
I called someone in North Dakota.
Okay.
And at that point, one of our big customers was University of Washington.
Okay.
And so I would just kind of like off the tongue be like, oh, like we're working with your neighbor, like over in University of Washington. And she's like, have you looked at a map, son? She's like, North Dakota is like thousands of miles away from University of Washington. Yikes. That is not my neighbor. Like, call me when you work with someone closer. Boom. And I was like, damn. I was like, oh my God. Like being, early 20s.
Yeah.
And,
trying to do the right thing.
Just trying to do the right thing. Talk to you about some safety.
Trying to help you.
Yeah. Trying to, hey, I'm a student. I get it. You know? But it was great though, because I had the founders right behind me. So they could hear me on the phone. They could hear my pitch and like the way I'd get back into it. So it was a great way for them to give me immediate feedback where like, I remember I got off that call, like took a second, did a few others, and the CTO, who was really, he had some sales, but he was really a developer too. And I remember he said to me, he's like, Bradley, you sound really good on the phone. And I was like,
thank you.
Let's keep going.
Let's
baby.
Let's do. I'm picking up. I'm not stopping.
You know what? I think I could get to 60 today.
Yeah,
let's push
I think so.
it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was cool. There was parts of it where I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think from learning a sales skill, I could see the value in going into a more established organization with a little bit more of a process, especially for what I do now in like more enterprise sales, because there is more of a formula in kind of points of contact, how many times you're talking to a client, how you're getting to next steps, and how you're making sure you're structuring that path so they can see the vision and know who they have to bring in from their team to make sure that this contract can actually get approved or pushed through. But in terms of like really hitting the ground running and again, building that business idea where it's like, okay, not only do I have to build a product, but I have to make sure that someone will actually trade me money for it.
Fair.
Right?
Totally fair.
And so it was a really great experience to start to get exposed to that and really learn what are the basic mechanics of running a real business.
Yeah, true. Wow, super, super valuable. I feel like a lot of people have said everyone should have a sales job at least once in their life.
Absolutely.
And now more than ever, especially with the economy, I see how important it is to have strong sales skills and also people who maybe are at a company who can sell.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's invaluable experience, and it really plays into what I see you doing now. I see that you're able to pitch yourself, pitch your products so well, and your experience at Bryant and at the startup that you worked at have served you well. So I'm so happy for you, and I want to talk about a thing that I saw online that you've been a part of, and it's called the Gratitude Guys.
Ooh, yeah, that's a throwback.
That's a throwback.
That's a throwback.
So, what is the Gratitude Guys?
Ooh, that was my first jump in as a founder.
Okay.
That was the first business that I started, and it was, again, that. I know Nick talks about this all the time, but I think everyone has like that $1 billion idea that they just missed out on.
Yeah.
Or they had that moment they just missed out on.
Yeah.
And for me, the Gratitude Guys is a big part of that moment. Yeah. Because it was, so I'll tell you the story. So I'm actually still wearing one, by the way. So, so it was a bracelet company. And what happened was my mom has always been kind of a crafty person. She used to have a interior painting business. Like she was always doing the scrapbooking, like that type of thing. And one year, I don't know what inspired her to do this, but she gave all of us, her sons and my sister, these bracelets that were made out of these natural stones.
Okay.
And they were really nice. And I remember thinking to myself, because one of the things that I've always tried to really pride myself on is like being grateful and like glass half full. And, know, that like, at the end of the day, we're all here experiencing this together. There's no room for assholes and it doesn't help anyone.
That's right.
And so I really try to stay focused and find ways to be grounded because again, as an entrepreneur, you get this, like there are tough days, there are great days, but ultimately whatever you're doing is hard, and to have some type of skill set available to you or process where you can go back and say, hey, you know what? I might be having a hard day, but at least I'm grateful for this, or at least I'm grateful for that. Yeah. And so I was practicing a lot of this at the time. And it just so happened that the bracelet she gave me had 30 beads in it.
Interesting.
So what I started doing is I started doing like almost like a count on the beads, where like every day I would like remind myself of one grateful thing.
Love that.
And so then it kind of created this idea where I'm like, oh, like this is so simple and intuitive, right? Like now every time I look at the bracelet, it became a thing where it's like, oh, I saw the bracelet or I noticed it, and I was like, oh, you know what am I grateful for today? And so it just became, again, a part of this ritual where I'm like, I would feel better, and I just would, I felt like I could handle stress better, and I could like handle problems with more patience and more grace for people. And then come to find out that there's, a lot of great research on how gratitude can support better mental health practices and support confidence and this like more growth mindset. And so I was like, what the heck? Like everyone's making all these gratitude things really hard where they had journals and they had reminders and download our app and do this. And I'm like, we just need something that we can wear that just reminds us to be grateful.
That's right.
And so that's what kind of spurred the idea of the gratitude guys. And at the time, you know, I was entering my senior year. So I was getting ready to leave Bryant. But I really liked this idea. So I was like, you know what, let me just start conceptualizing this out.
Yeah.
You know? And so I started doing these things where I started giving it to my friends just as gifts, where I was like, hey, like, you know, I'm really appreciative of your friendship, you know, and I just wanted like a small token to show you. And then what happened is they would tell that story to their family or their friends. And next thing you know, they'd be like, hey, like, can we get a few more of those? Like, I'll give you money to pay for them. Like, but, like, can you get a few more of those? And then it was so cool because it kind of was just one of those very natural progressions where, again, I don't feel like that was even a sales job because, like, again, I just felt what I was doing was just right and it was easy and people they gravitated with it. Yeah. And then eventually, like, news got out on campus. Like, everyone was a huge fan. Like, I had people who would like stop me in the hall, like, "Oh my god, you're the guy. You're the guy with the bracelets, right?" And so then eventually, I'm like, "Hey, this could be like a nice little business." And I thought I was like, one of the big issues that we had is there's a lot of these products out in the space that were driving kind of these, I'll say, like wellness practices. And unfortunately, you had to go digging for them. Like, you'd have to go based on recommendations or you'd have to go find an influencer who was using it. And it just seemed like it was very scattered. So the ultimate vision I had was like, what if we start with bracelets, we start with the idea of gratitude, but maybe we expand the concept to be into more of like being a marketplace for other wellness products. And of course, like, you know, again, this is where being an early stage founder and first time founder, you make mistakes. And not that the people I got involved in the company early on were problematic, but it really was a lesson for me on having really clear roles about who has decision power. Because I'm a very collaborative worker. So one of the things I did was I was like, well, it's not just me doing this. I want you to feel like you have a vested interest because you're also talking with college students, right? Like, you have classes and stuff. And like, not everyone's going to be motivated to go and spend their hours. They could be socializing or doing whatever, helping you build a business. True. So I was very open with the fact that I was like, I'll share equity. I'll be equal parts owning founder in this. And so at the time I got my then girlfriend, who was really great at like design and experience, really good with social media. She ran it for her sorority, like she did their recruitment, and she was really good at that stuff. And then I also had a friend who, James Emery, who now works at BetterHelp actually. Okay. So he's a cool connect. And he was really into photography and website development. And so I recruited the both of them. I was like, what do you think about this? Yeah. And I think where we had problems is, again, there was just conflicts about where this could go. Yeah. Because I think, and again, this is where I should have just listened to myself because James was very honest with me where he's like, I just think this is a cool project. Okay. And, you know, this could be a way to make a little bit of money or whatever. But what I was in it for was something much bigger. Yeah. Right. And so when I was like having ideas about like, we should tie to a nonprofit. So we actually donate the proceeds of what we generate to a mission-focused organization that's going to help us. And I really want to do mental health because I was like, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Like, it makes complete sense. Yeah. And I remember getting into a fight where he's like, oh, I want to do Teach for America. And it was like, not that it's a bad program or a great organization, but again, in terms of the gratitude guys, it just was a very, I didn't see the connect as much. Fair. But it was really cool though. It was a great experiment. It was like a lot of fun. And it was, what was most meaningful to me was the stories that came out. Like, I remember I gave, like one of my littles in my fraternity, I gave him a gratitude bracelet, and his mom ended up buying like 4 of them for her friends. Nice. And he came back to me. He told me, he's like, dude, I have to tell you, my mom told me that gift created the most meaningful night they've had as friends in like 20 years. I love that. And he was like, I've never like, he's like, I was shocked. He's like, my mom said they were all in tears. Wow. Like they've never been able to, they've never kind of created a moment where they could open up to each other about how much their friendship really means to each other. And he's like, this gift, this bracelet created a significant moment for them. Wow. And it was like, it was so cool hearing those stories. Like even, I think I have this one on my LinkedIn profile too, because to this day, it's still, I think one of the most meaningful things I ever did. But we had, you know, being kind of fashion focused, but also a bracelet company, we started with like a black natural stone bracelet, but then we wanted to open up into a white one. Okay. And so, but we hadn't quite released it yet. But we had this friend of a friend, again, like this network effect. Yep. And we came to learn that she bought her gratitude, we call it a gratitude reminder, not a gratitude bracelet, gratitude reminder. Yeah. And so she bought this gratitude reminder for her cousin who was unfortunately having a hard time battling cancer. And so what we did though is like we took the first white bracelet we had and we gave it to her as a gift.
Love that.
Because we were like, hey, we, again, we appreciate and we want you to have, we're hoping for a speedy recovery from your cousin. Like we want to make sure we're sending all the positive kind of energy and vibes we can to make sure that she has a good recovery.
Yeah.
And she said when she opened up that packaging at the counter, she was in tears because of just how significant it was. She's like, I've just have gotten used to people just not caring. And like, she's like seeing that the first white bracelet you made is going to my cousin and creating this moment of just overwhelming positivity for us is just, she's like, I don't have words for it. She was just overly so kind about it. And again, I think it was a really well-timed concept. I think we to this day, people talk about gratitude pretty regularly as a wellness practice, but this was like around 2016, 2017, so it was still kind of a new early day. So I was like, in my head, I was like, we could sell like millions of these, and we could sell ourselves to Alex and Ani, like we can do all these great things. And unfortunately, it just kind of got to the point where it's like, hey, we're trying, we made a little bit of money, but like, then I graduated, Marissa graduated, like James was focusing on his senior year. So it just kind of became one of those things where I was like, hey, this was a cool moment. We had some fun with it. We helped some people. But ultimately, we closed that business down, and I stepped into my sales role. So.
I see. So sales had called you after the gratitude guys.
Yeah, well, real life did.
Life,
you got bills.
Yeah, you got bills now, buddy. Gratitude is great.
You can't rely on a few bracelet sales.
No, it's not gonna cut. It's not gonna cut the bill. Yeah, it's not gonna pay the bills. Okay. Well,
no, you start doing the math, and you're like, wait, how much would you have to spend on Facebook Marketplace, or how much on Facebook advertising before?
About that.
Before we get to about 10,000 bracelets sold. And then we have production problems.
Oh, yeah, that.
Because we're hand making all these
things.
Oh,
you were hand making them?
Yeah.
Wow.
Every single one of them.
Oh, my gosh.
Every single one of them.
I absolutely love that. I feel like, one, people really get behind things that are authentic and the mission is pure. So something like the Gratitude Guys is exactly that. But then also having people who are behind the scenes doing the work themselves even speaks even more to the mission. So that's so cool. I'm sure that through that experience, there's a lot of things that you learned and took away from it, and it's made you a better entrepreneur, a better person. So thank you for doing those things, because we need more of that.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, man. I mean, it's funny because even to this day, I still get people in my network who will come up and be like, my gratitude reminder just broke. Like they've been wearing it for years, and it's like, I mean, I still have mine on.
Good for you.
Right?
Good
so,
for you.
but so all the time, and I tell people like, and if you had a gratitude reminder and you need a new one, I still got the materials.
Oh,
so,
do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, hey, if you guys are interested in a gratitude reminder,
it might take a little longer to make it for you.
That's fair.
Got a tech business now, but
well, I have to ask, since you do have a gratitude reminder still, is there something that you looked at the bracelet and thought of recently that you were grateful for?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, man, I think first and foremost that I made a lot of these decisions over the year for myself. You know, like I've been not in a selfish way, but I think being an entrepreneur comes with a certain acceptance of some hard times, right? And really, not everyone, is gonna approve or agree with the path you take when you say, hey, when I first got into startups, my mom's like, you just graduated with like 3 degrees from Bryant. Like you could go work at any, you have a great resume, you're a people person. Like you could go work at a company and make a real salary. I think I was making less than 30 grand a year in that sales job when I first left college. And again, that is not a lot of money to be living on after taxes. And then you have student loans. That's right. Like that. So I think for me, recently I was like, looked at it and I was like, you know what, Bradley, even though things haven't always been easy, at the end of the day, you stayed true to what you really wanted out of life. And not in a way that's, being an asshole or trying to tell people no, just because it's like, no, I have a pretty clear vision of how I want to be in this life. And I'm going to keep making decisions based on that vision.
Good for you. That's what I'll say. Good for you. That's what's up. That's what life is about, I feel like. Because you can go through life maybe thinking that, oh, I'm doing this thing because I want to do it. But maybe it's also because someone else has persuaded you in that regard. But I think for anyone who's listening, if there's something that is on your mind, you think it's a good idea for you, the people around you, I think there's no time like now to go for that. And take from Bradley. He's following his dreams, and he's having fun with what he's doing. So I hope that you can do the same.
Absolutely, man. Well, there's a lot more to life about than just making a salary.
There is.
There is. You gotta stay true, man. Because you're right. You do a lot of these things. You just never know. Right?
You never know.
I was just talking about this with Riley, where it's like you're 16, 17 years old, graduating high school. You get into college, you're told by all these people that you trust and that you respect, and you think that you're making all these decisions that are for you, but really have their influence in it.
That's fair.
And man, that is a thought process that can take you into a lot of places that you don't recognize yourself anymore.
True.
And that's the last place you want to be when you're 40, 50 years old and you're saying, holy crap. What did I just spend the past 50 years doing?
Yeah, very, very true. Well, do it. That's what I'm going to say. Do it. You know what you want to do, so go out and do it. So thank you so much for sharing about your experiences with that sales job right out of college, the Gratitude guys, your college experience, going to Saville, and really fostering the entrepreneurial spirit. So let's come to the present and look to the future and talk about you being the co-founder of Aerogami.
Yeah, man. What a journey that's been.
What a journey. What is Aerogami for the people who aren't familiar?
Yeah, so Aerogami is a Providence-based startup. We classify ourselves as a insurtech, so insurance technology. And we have a really cool platform that essentially takes any PDF document and we can embed mobile app features directly into that document. Really so cool. Imagine we work with insurance carriers where it's like you buy an insurance policy, and from a regulatory perspective, they're required to give you some type of confirmation of coverage that outlines what you just bought and the contract they just made with you. And so we take that document, we put it into our system, and we allow someone to essentially scan a QR code, save it onto their home screen just like they would with all their other apps. And then everything that's on that document, whether it's a phone number, a web link, an email, all becomes clickable and actionable. So now instead of you having to look through a policy to go find a customer service number or a claims number, you can click one button, be on the phone with the right place at the right time, and get a better service as a part of it. So
that is so needed because I feel like a lot of people, like they have different benefits or insurance policies. Absolutely. They're not super familiar with them, and maybe it's because those documents are kind of daunting to get through.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of text, and you don't even know what's what. But having something like Aerogami and being able to take that PDF, have it as an app on your phone, and then click through and actually take action on the things that are there.
Absolutely.
Is priceless.
Oh my God. Well, and the thing is too, I mean, this creates a relationship with your customer, right? So much of what we do is about building relationships now. And I think, unfortunately, insurance suffers from problems in their product, which they can't get around, right? Like, the only way that you're engaging with an insurance carrier is when you start your quote, you pay your premium, and you have to submit a claim. And none of those things are fun things. You know what I mean? Like, no one's ever really excited to go buy their insurance, or talk to an agency and be like, oh, yeah, let me talk through all these things that I have no idea about,
Literally.
And then same thing with, like, paying your premium, which is mostly automated for a lot of people, right? You don't have to go
Just
into a portal every month or write a check for your car insurance. You just pay it automatically and you forget about it.
That's right.
And then the worst case scenario is you're opening up a claim. And it's like, okay, now that means I've been rear-ended. Like I just had a friend recently, got into a car accident and, again, they're going through the stress, they're stuck in the middle of the road. Like there's all these issues and it's like, who do I call? What do I do? What do I ask for questions? And, again, you're not thinking about where's my insurance policy.
No.
And so insurance carriers have tried mobile apps and things like that, but unfortunately they haven't got the engagement. We're kind of in like an apped out moment right now, where people are no longer just downloading mobile apps because they're told so. It's just more one of those. It's kind of like, hey, if let's say 8 to 15% of your audience is downloading your mobile app, that is your A+ customer.
100%.
Those are the people who are going to follow the rules. They're going to go through every single step to download and take full advantage of whatever they just bought. But now you're leaving 85% of your audience completely unengaged. So now they don't know what they're covered for, who to call when they have a problem. And then guess what? As soon as they have an issue with you, they are writing an awful review about your product and service, and they're not coming back.
That's true.
And many times it's because someone just bought the wrong product.
That's fair.
So again, this is where we really try to have a conversation with carriers where it's not just about a product that we're like, oh, hey, we're going to make your PDF a little bit more fancy, a little more accessible. It's no, we're rethinking a core part of the experience for the majority of your audience, where you're delivering a document every day as a PDF attachment, which most people do nothing with. And then if they're putting it somewhere, it's like a Google Drive, a Dropbox, something that they're never going to find
never
again.
Going to look at again.
So it's like, shouldn't you just wouldn't you rather have hey, scan this QR code to download your policy docs and then have it be a full mobile experience where it's like, hey, save this policy right to your home screen. No app needed. And it's like, oh, great. Know what that results in? Higher engagement, definitely more click-throughs, lower servicing costs, and then higher revenue per client. Definitely. So it's a win-win-win all the way across the board.
It is.
And no code needed.
So what I'm interested in is someone listening to this, is Aerogami something that they can use right now, or would their insurance provider have to be signed on with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as you're okay with, signing a, not non-disclosure, but some thing that just doesn't hold us liable for the information. If you have a policy right now that you want on your phone, send it to info@aerogami.co and we'll make a digidoc for you.
Okay, is that right? Now, let me ask you this. Someone might be thinking, well, I'm not sure about Aerogami. I'm not super familiar. Is my data secure with them?
No, that's a great question.
Okay. Now, have you guys taken any measures in terms of security?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We're SOC 2 Type 2 compliant
Are you now?
Yeah, we got the full certificate.
Let's go. Yeah. All right, people. The data is safe.
Yeah. We're actually about to announce that we're HIPAA compliant, too. Ooh. So we just pulled that one off, too.
Nice.
And it's cool because, and then this is where I'm going to get a little techie with you, but the way our product is structured is so cool because it operates between all these worlds and it kind of grabs the best of everything. So even though we're not a mobile app, because you don't have to go to an app store to download our product.
That's right.
We're also not like a piece of software that's running in the background of your phone. So we kind of fool the phone to think we're something different, but when someone saves it, it actually is a PDF file they're saving on their phone. So it's kind of cool because from a security perspective, we don't have a live connection going back and forth between us and all our users' phones. They save that document on their phone localizes that information. So Aerogami doesn't have to keep pinging them with that data when they need to access it. The only time we go back and we ping them is if there's been an update or change to that document. Other than that, that document stays completely as it is on your phone, no interference from us. We don't ask for location data. We don't ask for information from your phone.
Wow.
We just ask for the basics to make sure we can fit it to the right device. And other than that, we have no idea who you are or what you're saving on your phone.
Wow. That is much less intrusive than some of the social apps that we all use and all the things that we engage with. And you're providing a lot of value for people. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I think it's a conversation more people would be interested in if they knew the option was available.
That's fair.
Because I think so much of what we just accept is just because we think there's nothing better.
That's fair.
But it's really cool because I think our technology opens up an exciting new option for a lot of these carriers where, and not just insurance, but like where I see the broader model here is any paper product that you have, any contract that you're dealing with a service, whether it's a warranty, a membership association, if you have a AAA card in your pocket, why shouldn't that be digital for you?
That's
you know what I mean? So there's all these other ways where it's how can we make this information more digital? And our technology, we're only finding more use cases and more ways we can integrate safer types of technology in it. Like I was talking with Mike Reyes the other day, and one of the things we talked about that's really exciting for our business is one of the experiments we ran during the pandemic, and I'll give you the founding story in a second here, but one of the experiments we run in the pandemic was all the vaccine ID cards that were happening. So it's like, hey, I got vaccinated. Now I'm getting a paper card. And now I have, but then if I want to go to New York, I have IBM asking me to upload my driver's license data and then my vaccination data also into this app that I'm supposed to have on my phone. But I'm not really knowing where this data is going to.
Fair.
And so we kind of thought, well, like there should just be a way that people can just show a secure version of the photo of their card, which is the acceptable method, right?
Yep.
But do that in a way where they're not saving on Google Photos or iPhone Photos, where again, whether you believe it or not, like guess what? They could go in there and pull that stuff pretty quick. So what we did is we built a product where anyone could go in there. We called it DigiVaxDoc.
Okay, I love that.
Not our best attempt.
Well, DigiDoc, DigiVaxDoc, it makes sense.
We played with it. But we were like, essentially you could go and upload a photo of your vaccine card. And then we produce a QR code for you that you could then scan it, save it on your phone, and then have access to your vaccine card right from your home screen. And again, we still have that same process where, again, that information became localized. And we even took it a step further where what we did is we actually created a matching key between our system and the device. And so what it allowed us to do is now we didn't even have to save the information on our server about the pictures of those cards. So after someone saved the DigiVaxDoc on their phone, we could wipe that picture from our server entirely. So we never actually had to hold that data. And the reason why I dropped Mike Reyes is because, again, he's very involved in the blockchain group here in Rhode Island and Providence. And one of the cool opportunities that we see for our product now through that experiment is how easy would it be for us to implement a blockchain as kind of the saving mechanism to do that same process, but now with more documents in a way that's also user-friendly, right? Because I don't know if you've tried to open up a safe wallet or start a safe wallet. So, do you think your grandma could do it?
I will say no. Grandma, you probably won't see this, but I don't think you can.
No, exactly. And then maybe even your parents, right? Like, again, I think there's a lot of issues with that technology right now that purely are centered around user experience.
That's right.
And so I think if we can incorporate more of the safety that's seen in that product into an experience that's more understandable and almost operates without the user even knowing that it's happening, that's going to be the golden ticket to actually getting mainstream with a lot of these technologies.
That's
and
right.
I do think Aerogami can play a role in that.
Something that's top of mind for me is being the co-founder of Aerogami. Now, looking back, have there been any key lessons that you've learned through your experience?
Yeah, definitely. We're still a very lean team. We've bootstrapped the whole thing so far since 2020, so we have not taken any outside capital. Which definitely makes you think differently. Because it's easier when you have a war chest. No, I shouldn't say it's easier. It's a different game.
Okay.
It's a different game you play because now you have investors, you have expectations. You know, there is a lot of stress and pressure that comes with those things. But it's just a different game. And same thing with your bootstrapping because now whatever money you bring in, you essentially eat what you kill. So there's no one
come to save you.
There's nothing that's gonna come in and give you a golden parachute. Parachute. Again, I keep using these bad terms, but it's again, you really have to rely on what you bring in. And I will say when we started, one of the things that we didn't do as good of a job is being really focused with our product and the people we were trying to serve. And I think that led us to making slower decisions and not making enhancements to the product that were as relevant to the audience that we really want to sell to.
I see.
So the way Aerogami got founded is, so that company I told you beforehand that I was starting in sales. So I worked for that company for about 2.5 years or so. And I kind of was starting as a sales rep in schools. We had this travel assistance client come on board. And then we kind of started looking at ways of like, oh, maybe there's more corporate kind of customers available that could benefit from this. At the end of the day, it was a contact card. So it was very limited in what it could provide for anything beyond just delivering contact information. Which was no one's problem. But again, you have to be realistic, right? And so then most of our business was focused in travel and universities and colleges. And then 2020 happened. And so unfortunately that business, because it was founder funded, we also never saw kind of our hockey stick growth year. So at one point, I think our peak headcount was like 11 people. And by the time 2020 came around, like we were down to like 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
Right. So it was definitely kind of hard times. And it kind of became a question for the founders, like, do we want to keep putting money into this? We've already put a bunch of money in. We've generated a little bit. We might not lose as much as we put in, but again, we would lose a lot more if we keep writing checks for this thing. So then kind of conversation happened where it was like, well, we're going to close down the business. We're going to close up shop. Both, the employees at the time, we all got phone calls like at the end of April. And it was like, hey, thanks for your help. But, like that's it. We're going to close it down. And so then at the time, myself and one of the other employees who was kind of really responsible for a lot of the day-to-day operations and kind of dealing with our customers, we saw that we're like, well, what are you guys going to do with the tech? Like, are you just going to shelve it? Like, what's the plan? And again, they were just kind of like, hey, no one's got the energy. It's a really risky market environment right now. Like, if we continue doing this, like, we're going to guaranteed lose money. Like, that was really what it came down to. And so her and I kind of looked at each other and said, like, hey, well, like, maybe there's something we could do with this.
For sure.
Right? And we were very lucky, I think, to have the support of the original founders, where they really believed in us as professionals. And so they kind of were like, hey, if you guys want to make a deal and buy the assets and the IP from the company, let's talk a deal. And so then from like essentially April till like, I think July 5th is when we signed the papers. We were in negotiation and like contract mode of trying to like,
let's make this thing happen.
We're like, what assets do we have? Like do we have customers still? Like and at this point, like it wasn't even the contact card that was really interesting to us, but this other product that hadn't come to market yet. It was kind of in beta phase. They had this. They're like, hey, we have this PDF viewer that kind of can be a mobile app.
It can be pretty cool.
They're like, at this point, the only thing it does is we can save it to your home screen and it auto updates.
Cool.
But it was literally a PDF viewer, like just on your phone.
I see.
So it was like that was it. There was nothing really fancy about it.
I see.
But we said we're like, hey, well, that's really interesting though, because that would solve a lot of the issues that people had with the contact cards.
True.
Because it's a little bit more dynamic experience. We can fit more content on there. It's more closer to that app experience without being an app. So that's kind of interesting. Excuse me. So it was just one of those moments where it's like, hey, you know what? This could be something. And so again, we were lucky to have support. We signed papers, we bought the IP, and then we hit the black book. We just started going to customers and saying, hey, we have this new product. We would love to continue a relationship. We had to tell the story too of like, hey, unfortunately, this other company is not going to be able to service you in this way anymore. But we'd be happy to, come in and say, hey, we have this new product that could fit your needs still. We liked working with you. And we kind of just rolled with it. We just said, let's see what we can drum up. And so we were able to drum up a little bit of money first year. Not enough to really pay salaries, but it was kind of just like, all right, let's keep sticking through it and just see what happens. So now 3 years later, we're doing a lot better.
Nice.
We had that book of business a little divided because we had our college and university customers that we knew.
That's right.
And then we had maybe a few travel customers that were focused in the assistance space. But we knew we're like, dude, insurance, really, this new product, insurance is going to be killer for.
I think so.
But we also had to keep our school customers in the back of our mind. So it was kind of like, are we developing this for universities, but are we also developing this for insurance? And it was kind of this, again, split vision about what the company needed to be.
I see.
So I do wish early on that we made more of a concrete decision to say, hey, if it's not insurance related, then we can't be spending efforts on it.
Fair. But it takes going through that to know that.
For sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's time well spent. And I think that is just something that you need to kind of go through really to be able to come out on the other side and be like, okay, now I know who my target audience is, who I'm really going after, who I can serve well, and what we should focus on. So
absolutely. Well, and the thing is too, I think it was a great experiment, or it was a great experience in a way where you talk about these things as an entrepreneur, where like you talk to any VC or an investor and they're going to say, who are you selling to?
That's right.
They're going to come out the gate and they're going to say, who's your target audience? Give me a persona. Give me how much this problem costs them. And that's all great in theory. But there's very few, like again, in our business, we were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because we had this product that we thought could solve a problem, but we don't have like the actual cost benefit analysis of what this problem cost people because there wasn't a lot of research done on how that problem impacted this industry.
True.
So it was just kind of this thing where it was like, well, we think we have something cool, but we don't know enough yet to really come up with a killer. This person, this is our buyer persona, and this is what they're looking for, and this is how we solve it. So that's where you talk to entrepreneurs who are building products first. And I think that's where it gets really tough, is like you really do have to navigate that space of how do we make these decisions on who we're really servicing, especially when our market's bigger than one customer.
True.
Because that was where we would also kind of put our foot in our mouth, because we're like, well, we're kind of insurance focused, but any product that relies on a document to complete the transaction could benefit from our technology. So, we want to say we're insurance, but we also want to keep ourselves open to opportunities, So, again, it just made it hard for the branding, marketing, and again, that very specific customer outreach to happen. But we learned a lot better, and we got more focused, and I think that's probably part of the reason why we're seeing the success we have today.
Of course. Hell yeah. And I'm rooting for you guys. I think that what you guys are doing is awesome, and I am proud of you. I want to say that much. I look up to you in some ways, and I want you to know that you're just somebody in this space that is really doing a great job. So keep on doing exactly what you're doing.
Thanks, dude.
Appreciate you. Now, the last question about Aerogami. What excites you about the future?
Oof. Yeah. I think what excites me about the future about this product, and again, when we get there and if we get there, all big statements, but there's someone I look up to, John Henry, who's running an insurance company with someone who I also look up to, Carrie Ann Nadeau. And one of the things he talks about with that company is like, anyone can generate $1 billion. But it's cooler to think about generating something 1 billion people could use.
Ooh, that's right.
And I really think about our platform, and I think about the problems that most people encounter with the documents they manage. And again, a lot of the solutions that have been out there today, they've been focused on document creation and editing and management, but not document interaction. And there's a critical difference there in how you build a platform based on those kind of parameters, right? Like it's easy to, hey, we'll put this in a file and we'll store it and we'll organize it.
Sure.
But when you're talking about something like an insurance product where there's actually tangible items on that policy that someone needs to be able to interact with, putting it in a Google Drive or a Dropbox or your Files app is not a good answer anymore. It's not.
I don't think so.
So I think about all the people we could help if they just had the right document on their phone and they could make the call, they could make the click,
Yeah.
they could get the help they need when they need it most.
That's
like,
right.
You know, back like that student in 2015 Paris.
Oh yeah, just when you
So,
needed it. Yeah, if only Phil was around. But
Yeah.
you're doing a great job at making sure that the next person who maybe goes through something like that will be able to have something that helps them.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing about your experience as the co-founder of Aerogami. Now, what do you like to do in your free time?
Free time.
Free time.
Yeah.
Like,
oh man.
Founders and friends events. Going out to a nice dinner somewhere in Federal Hill. Are we going hiking, traveling? What are we doing?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know, man. You know me. I love this scene. I love Providence.
Yeah.
I'm a transplant, so you know I can't claim the born and bred here.
That's
but
fair.
let me tell you, there's something about this city that's really special.
Definitely.
And I love giving back any way I can to
Yeah.
what this community does and what it continues to foster. You know, I think one of the things that's so cool about the community we're in is everyone's so resilient, right?
Yeah.
You hear about the people who have been here for generations, and it's because they came from somewhere that didn't have the opportunity and they started here. They came to Rhode Island first.
Yeah.
And they stayed here and they
right.
built it and they fought the fight, and that resilience is still so present in everything we do today. And I think Rhode Island's going to enter, I won't say bad times, but hard times soon.
Okay.
Because I think the secret's getting out.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in the development, you see it in, you know, the kind of buildings that people are focusing on, you know, when it comes to apartments and all this luxury stuff. And again, there's going to be a need for some of that stuff to happen.
Yeah.
But I do see the real landscape of Providence changing quite a bit over the next 5 to 15 years.
Same.
And so in my free time, what I really like to do is just be a part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Being intentional, because I think when you look and you do the research about some of the companies coming in, not being here, but the companies coming in to develop Rhode Island, it's Boston, it's New York, it's Connecticut, it's places where the opportunity has already been sowed from the ground in those places. And now they're looking for that next spot. And I think if we're not careful, again, we could enter in a spot where Providence and the people who made it great no longer can live here in the way that they were used to.
That's fair to say.
And that would absolutely break my heart, because I think so much of our culture and why the city is so great is because the people who've always been here and stuck here.
I would agree. Yeah.
So, I love spending time helping support groups like Founders and Friends, where we met, you know, the first time.
Right. Yeah.
Again, love supporting people like Nick, who is like just doing great work to promote what Rhode Island is and what Providence is doing.
Oh, yeah.
And just finding ways to help entrepreneurs who are trying to do their part in kind of building the scene and making sure that the communities here are being supported as well.
That's right. Love that. Absolutely love that. And I see it firsthand, so I definitely believe you too. Now, looking back on your life and your journey and your career so far, has there been a role model that you've looked up to, someone who's inspired you, maybe a mantra or a resource, something that's kept you going?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much, man. I think the hard part is really keeping focus on what's helping you in the moment, right? Because you go through stages.
Definitely.
You know, what's really impactful for you as a young person is changes as you get exposed to more experiences. So I really try to be cognitive of like, what am I paying attention to about myself, and then, you know, where am I drawing that inspiration from? But like, you know, there's some great mentors that I've had over the years, like even that CTO I mentioned, Douglas Crystal. He's also a co-founder of a company called True Video up in Wellesley, Mass. And they're doing incredible work educating people on their auto repair bills. So they actually have a whole platform that essentially, if you go drop your car off at one of their dealerships, you get a video sent to you about what they're doing on your car and the problems they're seeing. So you're educated on why a maintenance bill might be bigger or might need to be bigger than what you initially brought your car there for.
Okay.
And that was a business he was kind of co-founding at the same time with our group. But I mean, he was just one of those guys where, again, he was really focused on who he wanted to be and how he wanted to be. He was not afraid to put himself out there and learn the skills and kind of approach, you know, anybody and talk about what the problems were. But he's also a super humble guy too. He, like, I remember he would show up to work with like a hoodie, no shirt underneath. He'd come back from a bike ride.
That's awesome.
One time he came with a crutch from a fall over the weekend. Like, it was
crutch into the office.
He was awesome.
Oh,
Absolutely
man,
awesome.
that's great.
So he was really definitely been a big role model. I'll say my older brother Travis. He not that he's in a very different field. He does commercial real estate. But what I always admired about him was his ability to focus and really kind of cut out the noise and build that system, right? We all talk about what our best selves look like, right?
Sure.
We talk about when we're peak organization and peak production and we're reading and we're working out and we're drinking plenty of water. You know, Travis is the kind of guy who's actually doing that stuff.
Is that right?
Like he's over in San Diego right now.
Okay.
He'll be talking in our group chat in our family at like 8:30 in the morning, our time. So
And
I'm like,
5 there.
so I'm like, dude, he's up at 5:30 and I know he's either sitting at his laptop doing work or like trying to get a run in for the day, do whatever. And I remember one of the things that was really impactful for me was like when I was going to college, one of the things I like to do a lot is journal. And my journaling habit started because my parents gave me a journal when I started my college experience.
Okay.
But then they had everyone kind of write a message.
Oh, I love that.
And it was funny because Travis wrote his message, but he's like actually turned to the back of the book to go see my like 10 rules on college essentially.
Ooh.
And so he actually, because he was the only other kind of family member to go through like a 4-year on campus kind of college experience. And so he was like, these are my top 10 tips. And he was the one who actually said like, go abroad. He was like, in his tips, he's like, go abroad. He didn't do it when he was in college.
Okay.
Regretted it. But again, he really was like just a really constant presence of being like, hey man, are you doing what you want to do?
Yeah.
Are you practicing what you want to practice?
Wow.
And he's always kind of been that guy. So so he's a great role model. And then the last person I'll throw out is Frank Wright, who's an architect out of he's done a lot of work, but he's mainly a lot of his projects are seen in California. And what I love about what his work was, it was focusing on making sustainable and affordable designs nice places to live.
Oh,
so it wasn't just about doing like the affordable housing movement. It was about how can we create these spaces that are meaningful and impactful for people and a place that they want to live, but we do so in a way that's sustainable and affordable so the average person can have a beautiful home to live in that doesn't have to break the budget. And now it's kind of funny because a lot of his homes are worth millions of dollars.
Oh my gosh.
But again, I think it's that philosophy, and I think we could bring a lot of that kind of thinking here in Providence where we will kind of have more of a housing crisis as times go on.
That's fair to say. Yeah. Wow.
So,
really
that's
cool.
a group.
That's a great group. Now,
group
my last question, just to close us out here, is someone has sat through and listened to this entire podcast, and they've been like, wow, Bradley Adams. Now I know who he is. He's the co-founder of Aerogami, and he's done a lot of really awesome things in his life. I want to be just like Bradley, and I want to be an entrepreneur like him. Don't be you. Well, I want to be like him, not him. But what advice would you give to that person?
Oof, that's tough. I'd say be intentional.
Okay.
Be intentional.
Okay.
I think take the seat, have a conversation with yourself, be completely honest about what you want and who you want to be. Write those things down. Put a list out in front of you. You know, it seems simple, but having that conversation with yourself is one of the most meaningful things you can do every day. So yeah, that would be my tip for you.
Love that. Well, you guys heard it here first from Bradley Adams. Be intentional. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe. Go check out Bradley Adams. Go check out Aerogami. I'll put their website right here. And stay tuned because Bradley's doing amazing things, and I hope that we can have him back someday. And this was a blast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.